Throughout history, a small group of individuals has wielded extraordinary power, orchestrating events and manipulating societies for their benefit. They have been the primary perpetuators of racism across the world. They train our minds to hate each other, but in reality, it doesn't have to be like this. These elite groups have often been the architects of pain and suffering, operating in secrecy to maintain their control over both bodies and minds across all cultures. Their influence can be traced through various historical movements and conflicts, showcasing how they have perpetuated systems of oppression and exploitation. The legacy of these powerful entities is evident in the interconnectedness of societal struggles, revealing that the true architects of conflict often lie hidden behind the scenes. They benefit from the suffering of others, using their resources to influence political and economic landscapes, perpetuating cycles of inequality and subjugation. This manipulation is not confined to any single race or culture. Rather, it reflects a broader pattern of exploitation that transcends borders and identities. To understand this complex web of power, one can look to historical texts that expose the actions of secretive societies and their impacts. For example, books like Proofs of a Conspiracy by John Robison, 1798, and Memoirs Illustrating the History of Jacobinism by Abbé Baruel, 1797, provide insights into the activities of secret societies, including the Freemasons and the Illuminati, suggesting their involvement in global events and revolutions. The Black Bull, The Secret Society of Black Elites, by T.J. Holmes, investigates the role of this influential African-American organization, which includes notable figures such as W.E.B. Du Bois and other prominent African-American leaders who sought to elevate the status of their community while grappling with the dynamics of power and race. In the realm of mind control and manipulation, The Manipulation of the Mind, by David S. Fair, 1892, offers insight into how secret societies have employed psychological tactics to influence public perception and behavior. This book explores techniques ranging from propaganda to subliminal messaging, illustrating how the powerful have historically manipulated the minds of the masses to maintain their control. By understanding these methods, we can see how elite groups leverage psychological manipulation to ensure compliance and perpetuate their interests. These works shed light on the persistent reality that a select few continue to manipulate the masses, orchestrating events that serve their interests while leaving widespread suffering in their wake. Understanding this dynamic is crucial in addressing the ongoing challenges faced by individuals and communities around the world as we strive for a more equitable and just society. The influence of these hidden powers serves as a reminder of the importance of vigilance and awareness in the face of systemic oppression. The common narrative surrounding slavery often overlooks the fact that the enslaved were not exclusively brought from Africa. Many were already present in America. Historical accounts, including those noted in Christopher Columbus's diary, suggest that the indigenous peoples of the Americas were subjected to forms of enslavement and oppression. This perspective challenges the mainstream understanding of slavery's origins and calls into question the portrayal of enslaved individuals as solely African. In addition to the discussion of slavery, it is essential to explore the American Civil War, fought from 1861 to 1865. Commonly perceived through the lens of slavery and states' rights, a more nuanced understanding reveals the war as a multifaceted conflict involving various political, economic, and social factors, including the dynamics between the American government and Native American tribes. The reality is that many Native Americans were subjected to forms of enslavement and displacement, facing significant oppression as their lands were invaded. The financing of the American Civil War by external powers, particularly the British, further complicates the narrative. Britain, benefiting from the war's outcomes, provided support to both sides, raising questions about the true motivations behind the conflict. Historical accounts and studies reveal that the British interests often aligned with the exploitation of land and resources, perpetuating the oppression of Native Americans. Books that delve into these themes and provide a more comprehensive understanding of the era include A Century of Dishonor by Helen Hunt Jackson, 1881, which documents the injustices faced by Native Americans due to U.S. government policies. The History of the American Indian by David Cusick, 1828, provides one of the earliest recorded accounts of Native American perspectives on European colonization and its impacts. The political machinations behind colonization reveal a consistent pattern of oppression driven by greed and power. The motivations for wars and territorial expansions were often veiled under the guise of civilization and progress. During the late 19th century, the expansionist policies of European nations led to numerous conflicts, with the consequences profoundly affecting indigenous populations around the world. One key example of this dynamic is the Lewis and Clark expedition, 1804 to 1806, which sought to explore and map the newly acquired territories of the United States following the Louisiana Purchase. Although framed as a scientific exploration, the expedition had significant implications for Native American tribes, whose lands were increasingly encroached upon. This raises critical questions about the ethical considerations of exploration and the rights of indigenous peoples. Historical accounts and academic works provide insight into these dynamics. And A New View of Society by Robert Owen, 1816, reflect early awareness of the injustices faced by indigenous populations, highlighting the need for a more equitable understanding of history. The Zulu nation of Southern Africa stands as a powerful example of resistance against colonial forces during the 19th century. Led by their legendary king Shaka Zulu and later by leaders like Cetshwayo, the Zulus demonstrated resilience and strategic brilliance in their fight against British colonial encroachment. The Battle of Isandlwana in 1879, where the Zulu army decisively defeated British forces, remains one of the most significant indigenous victories against a colonial power in African history. Despite their success in battles like Isandlwana, the Zulus ultimately faced overwhelming odds due to the technological superiority and relentless tactics of the British Empire. The subsequent battles and eventual defeat of the Zulu nation in the Anglo-Zulu War highlighted the determination of the Zulus to defend their sovereignty, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. The story of the Zulus is not just one of warfare, but also of cultural resistance. Their struggles against British imperialism were as much about protecting their way of life, traditions, and societal structures as they were about defending their land. The legacy of the Zulu resistance remains a source of inspiration for modern movements seeking to reclaim African history and identity from the narratives imposed by colonial powers. Books like The Zulu War and the Colony of Natal by William Lonsdale Watkinson, 1880, and Cetshwayo's Dutchman, being the private journal of a white trader in Zululand during the British invasion by Cornelius Vision, 1880, offer first-hand perspectives on the conflict and provide a deeper understanding of the Zulu resistance and its place in the broader context of African struggles against colonialism. Throughout history, slavery has often been driven by the interests of the wealthy and powerful, transcending racial and ethnic lines. While the narrative surrounding slavery is frequently framed within the context of race, it is vital to understand that the mechanisms of enslavement have historically been rooted in socioeconomic structures that benefit a small elite at the expense of others. This chapter explores various instances of enslavement across different cultures and time periods, highlighting that the foundations of slavery lie in the dynamics of power and wealth. The Barbary slave trade, 16th to 19th centuries, serves as one notable example of how Europeans fell victim to enslavement. North African pirates, known as Barbary corsairs, captured thousands of Europeans, including those from Britain, France, and Italy, forcing them into slavery. These individuals faced dire conditions and were often subjected to brutal labor, illustrating that the cycle of enslavement was not limited to one race or region, but was a reflection of power dynamics. Similarly, the system of indentured servitude prevalent in colonial America and the Caribbean saw many Europeans, primarily from England and Ireland, bound to work for a specified number of years in exchange for passage to the New World. While they were not enslaved in the strictest sense, their treatment and conditions could mirror those of enslaved individuals, revealing how economic desperation can lead to exploitation regardless of one's ethnicity. Slavery and exploitation are not confined to any single race or ethnicity. Instead, they are deeply rooted in the actions of the powerful and wealthy who seek to maintain control over others for their gain. Notable works that discuss these themes include Slavery and Commerce in Colonial New York by Edwin G. Burroughs and Mike Wallace, 1999, and The Slave Trade, The Story of the Atlantic Slave Trade, 1440 to 1870 by Hugh Thomas, 1997, which offer perspectives on the complexities of slavery beyond racial confines.